Under the harsh fluorescence of the conference room, I felt my phone vibrate for the third time in less than a minute. I tried to ignore it. My team was waiting for the conclusion of my forensic audit presentation, and I'd spent 3 weeks pulling apart a multi-million-dollar fraud case. But when the fourth vibration came steady and insistent, a cold instinct fluttered through me. I slid the phone closer just enough to glimpse the notification. A bank alert. Charge approved $14,500. Merchant Pacific Star Luxury Cruises. My breath stopped. A second alert appeared, then a third, each one confirming the same transaction. I whispered no, but the word barely left my mouth. I stood there in my own life, suddenly locked out, trapped behind glass, watching something irreversible happen in real time. And I knew without even looking that this wasn't fraud from a stranger. It was my family. I excused myself from the room before anyone could see my face break. The hallway outside was lined with floor-to-ceiling glass, reflecting the morning clouds that always sat low over Seattle. I pressed the phone to my ear as I called home, each ring shaking in my hand. When my mother finally answered, her voice was breezy, almost cheerful, as if I'd interrupted her in the middle of a brunch she didn't pay for. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, "did you see the charge already? They process those fast." "What charge?" My voice cracked. "Oh, don't be dramatic, Jenna. It's just the cruise, 14-something. Bella needed it. She's been stressed." I felt the blood drain from my arms. "You charged $14,500 on my credit card." "Well, yes," she said, laughing softly. "You don't travel anyway. It's not like you'd use that money for yourself." I leaned against the cold glass, the building humming beneath my spine. "Mom, that is not your card. You can't just, oh, relax. You always get so emotional. Your sister deserves to enjoy life a little. And this is a luxury cruise, honey, a once-in-a-lifetime thing." "Isn't it wonderful?" "No," I whispered. "No, it wasn't." "You can join us at the airport if you want," she added, as if offering me a crumb of kindness. "But only if you promise not to ruin Bella's vibe. She's so excited." A hollow laugh rose up inside me, sharp metallic. "Enjoy your trip," I said. She didn't hear the warning under the words, but I felt it blooming like ice inside my chest. A silent promise forming. They had no idea what was coming. I ended the call and stared through the glass at the gray skyline. Somewhere between the conference room and this hallway, something fundamental in me shifted. The girl who always paid the bills, who always forgave, who always carried the weight because no one else would, she finally cracked open. I walked out of the building, the drizzle sinking into my jacket. I didn't care about the unfinished meeting. I cared about the truth clawing its way to the surface, the one I'd tried to avoid for years. My family didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as an asset, a financial backup plan, an endless, well, they could drink from until I ran dry. The drive to the house felt like drifting toward something that had been waiting in the dark. The closer I got, the more I realized I hadn't really lived there in months. I'd worked late nights, taken weekend shifts, stayed anywhere but that house, because being inside it felt like wearing a coat that wasn't mine anymore. When I pulled into the driveway, rain dripping from the eaves reminded me how many storms this roof had weathered because of me. I bought this place 4 years ago, the day my boss told me I'd earned my first real promotion at Rains & Morgan. I'd stood right here clutching the keys, imagining holidays, birthdays, maybe even a future family. I imagined warmth. But as I put the key into the lock, something stopped the door from opening. Pushing harder, I realized the entrance was blocked by suitcases and stacked Amazon boxes, Bella's logo tags still taped to the sides. A note hung on the doorknob written in bubble letters, "Please don't touch anything. Bella's outfits for the cruise. Troy." My jaw tightened. Her boyfriend had left me instructions about my own house. Inside, a wave of artificial vanilla coconut perfume hit me thick enough to make my eyes water. The living room, once minimalist and calm, was now a chaotic staging area of ring lights, tripods, and clothing racks bent under the weight of outfits Bella couldn't choose between. Half-eaten takeout containers lined the coffee table. Glitter coated the rug like mold. I remembered buying that rug on a freezing December night, thinking how its softness would make the space feel more like home. Now it felt like it belonged to someone else's life. I walked deeper shoes, sticking slightly where a spilled latte had dried on the hardwood. My mother appeared at the top of the stairs wearing a silk robe that wasn't hers, her hair already styled for the trip. She looked me up and down as if I'd walked into her space uninvited. "Jenna, for heaven's sake," she said. "You could have called first." "This is my house," I replied. She rolled her eyes. "Yes, technically. But we've made it our home. Don't ruin today with your negativity." I stared at her. "You took $14,500 from me?" "I didn't take it. I used it for the family. God, you always twist things. Your sister needs rest. She deserves nice things. She has a whole life to build, Jenna. And I don't." "You're different," she said, as if stating a provable fact. "You're strong. You don't need luxuries. You have work. Bella has dreams. You should be proud to help her." Something inside my chest stung, a small sudden ache that had been growing for years. Then Bella floated down the stairs like a princess descending for a photo shoot, wearing a white robe with gold trim. Oversized sunglasses hid half her face even indoors. She didn't remove them when she saw me. "Oh my God, Jenna," she said. "Could you at least try not to stress everyone out? We're literally about to leave. Mom said you were in one of your moods." "My mood." My voice stayed calm, but something sharp lived beneath it. "Bella, you used my card." She flicked her hand dismissively. "Relax. We'll pay you back. Eventually." "You won't," I said simply. She froze. My mother stepped between us. "Jenna, don't start. This trip is important. She needs content. Sponsors are watching her. Don't sabotage her." I had no words. Only silence. A silence that grew heavy enough to push against the walls. As they finished their packing, I noticed details I had overlooked for too long. A handwritten list on the kitchen island labeled, "Expenses Jenna will cover," in Bella's loopy handwriting. A second list, "After cruise, start house transfer paperwork." Something cold crept through me. They weren't just using me, they were planning something. When the Uber arrived, Bella kissed the air near my cheek and said, "Keep an eye on the plants, okay?" As if I were the hired help. My mother walked past me without meeting my eyes. "Richard?" My father paused. His lips parted like he wanted to say anything, but when my mother snapped Richard, he flinched and followed her. The house went quiet. Their laughter drifted down the driveway, muffled by the rain. I closed the door and leaned my forehead against the wood, letting the silence wrap around me. My hands shook, not from anger but from a realization I could no longer outrun. They didn't respect me. They didn't fear consequences. They didn't believe I would ever fight back. And for the first time I understood how wrong they were. I walked past the staircase and headed toward the basement door. A slip of paper flashed in my mind, the one my father had pressed into my hand when my mother wasn't watching. Check basement. I flicked on the light and descended the creaking steps. The air grew colder the further I went. At the bottom, unopened envelopes filled 3 crates. Bills, notices, warnings, all addressed to me, all hidden. A large yellow envelope lay on top. Inside, a letter from a law firm. Subject: property occupancy dispute. Request verification for quiet title consideration. Primary contact Lorraine Whitford. I stared at the signature, not breathing. Quiet title. They weren't just stealing my money, they were preparing to steal my house. My knees nearly gave out. Every lie, every manipulation, every time they told me I didn't need much, every moment they made me feel like I existed to serve them, this was the end game. I rose slowly, my heart beating, steady, controlled. Upstairs, light filtered through the rain-soaked windows, illuminating the mess they'd made of my life. But a strange calm settled over me, unexpected and absolute. They thought $14,500 was the price of their betrayal. They had no idea what it would truly cost them. I picked up the phone, dialed the one person who could help me make sense of this. "Rachel," I said, when she answered my voice, low, steady, unrecognizable even to myself. "It's happening. I need help. and the woman I used to be, the daughter who tolerated everything, took her final breath right there in that ruined house. Rachel didn't speak right away after I finished explaining what I'd found in the basement. I could hear her breathing through the phone, steady and thoughtful, the way she got when she was solving a puzzle. Finally, she said, "Jenna, they were preparing to file a quiet title action against you. That's not a misunderstanding. That's premeditated theft." I sat at the kitchen island as the rain tapped against the windows. The house felt too large, too hollow, like it had been gutted even before any demolition began. "I know," I whispered. I need you to tell me I'm not crazy." "You're not crazy," she said firmly. "You're catching them before they finish the job." Her words slipped under my skin, grounding me and breaking something loose at the same time. A tremor ran down my spine, not fear but recognition. For years I'd justified every slight, every manipulation. But this wasn't petty, and it wasn't emotional immaturity. It was criminal. "Okay," I said, my voice steadier. "So what do I do?" "You document everything she said. Every bill they hid, every repair they neglected, every receipt, every message, every piece of mail. You build a record that proves they weren't tenants, they were opportunists, deliberately avoiding responsibility." "What about the credit card charge?" I asked. "That's theft. You can choose to report it or handle it privately. But the property angle, we need to get in front of that fast." I exhaled slowly, letting her guidance sink in. I trusted Rachel more than anyone. She was the person who sat with me when I pulled my first all-nighter at the firm, the one who told me I was underpaid before I even realized it myself, the one who said, "You're the smartest person in this room, Jenna," long before I had the courage to believe it. "I can come over," she offered. "We'll sort everything tonight." "No," I said quickly, a strange instinct rising in me. "This part, I need to do alone." There was silence. Then she sighed. "Okay, but call me if you need anything." After I hung up, I simply sat for a moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the faint echoes of the life I'd once imagined here. My mother's mug sat in the sink, lipstick smeared at the rim. Bella's hair extensions lay draped over the back of a dining chair like a shed skin. The house whispered back to me, telling stories I'd ignored for too long. I stood and walked through each room, slowly seeing everything differently now. The living room rug stained with ground-in glitter foundation spills, and something sticky that smelled like spilled cocktails. The hardwood floor dented from the heels Bella wore indoors after filming her little lifestyle videos. The mantel cracked from when Troy had attempted to mount a new TV bracket without anchoring it properly. Every detail was evidence. Evidence of neglect. Evidence of entitlement. Evidence of everything I had refused to confront. Upstairs, Bella's bedroom looked like the inside of a fashion tornado, clothes everywhere, open drawers, scattered jewelry, makeup, crushed into powders across the vanity. I opened her closet. Shopping bags from designer brands she did not have the money to afford stacked on top of each other. My credit card statements suddenly made more sense. On the top shelf, partially hidden beneath a stack of sweaters, I found a small black box. Inside was a diamond necklace, large, ostentatious, expensive, definitely above any budget Bella had ever earned on her own. A receipt was tucked beneath the velvet lining. My name, my card number, and the date. A purchase I had never made, neatly folded and forgotten. A chill rippled over my arms. They hadn't even tried to hide it well. They assumed I wouldn't look. They assumed I wouldn't question it. They assumed I wouldn't fight. I left the box open on the bed and moved down the hall to what used to be my home office. My desk was gone, replaced by a broken vanity table Bella had dragged in and attempted to repaint. Half the drawers were missing. Nail polish was smeared along the edges like someone had painted blindfolded. My filing cabinet, a locked fireproof chest where I kept tax documents, W-2s, and sensitive client paperwork, was pried open. Not broken, but opened with a key I had hidden under the drawer liner. Only one person knew I kept a key there. My mother. Inside, folders had been rifled through. Some documents missing, others rearranged. A letter from the county assessor's office addressed to me torn open and shoved back in the wrong file. My breath grew shallow. They had been searching for something. Maybe proof of ownership, maybe financial weaknesses, maybe documents they could use in their case. They had come into my private space. Not just physically, but symbolically. They had crossed boundaries I didn't even know were still there. The worst part was how unsurprising it felt. I walked downstairs again with a numb heaviness in my chest. I ended up on the floor in the living room sorting mail into stacks. Unpaid utility bills 17, final notices 6, collections warnings 3, letters addressed to Bella that she never opened 15, letters addressed to me that had been deliberately hidden 27. The longer I sorted, the heavier the air became, thickening around me like fog. At some point the front door creaked open. I froze, my body tightening instinctively. But no one stepped in. A gust of cold air pushed the door wider. The wind had blown it open. It hadn't latched properly when my family rushed out earlier. I stood and walked slowly toward the door, the rain still falling in soft sheets onto the driveway. Their footprints were already fading. Their laughter no longer echoed. A rusted wind chime clattered softly overhead. I grabbed the door with a slow inhale and shut it firmly. Then something on the table caught my eye. A handwritten note, one I'd overlooked in the chaos. It sat under a pile of coupons and makeup bags, folded cleanly and written in my mother's perfect looping script. After the cruise, let's talk about transferring the house. It's time for Bella to have stability. Stability. The word pulsed behind my ribs like a bruise, as if I had no right to my own home, as if my job, my life, my sacrifices meant nothing compared to Bella's dreams. A bitter laugh escaped my throat. Not loud, not hysterical, just sharp and painful. But beneath the bitterness, something else was forming. Something steady, something cold. Resolve. I returned to the kitchen and began photographing everything. The bills, the letters, the pried-open cabinet, the broken furniture, the hidden receipt. Every detail, every trace of their misuse. When my phone storage filled, I moved the images to a secure drive and kept going. Hours passed without me noticing. The rain stopped, the sky darkened. My stomach grumbled, but I ignored it. Around 8:30, my phone buzzed. "Rachel, you alive?" she texted. "Yeah," I replied, sorting everything, "need food." I hesitated, then typed, "Not hungry." She didn't argue. She just wrote, "Okay, call if you need backup." Backup. The word settled in me. I wasn't alone, not really. But this battle, the one that had been building for years, was one only I could fight. I moved to the last room on the main floor, my parents' room. They'd taken the master when they moved in, temporarily insisting it made sense because my mother's back hurt on smaller beds. I'd agreed because I always agreed. The room smelled like cheap perfume layered over stale air. Clothes lay draped over the footboard. My father's shoes were tossed in the corner. The closet door hung slightly open. Inside, boxes were stacked. Not moving boxes, storage boxes full of documents. And on the top sat a typed letter, unsigned but unmistakably written by my mother. "To whom it may concern, my daughter, Jenna Ward, no longer resides at this property. She has verbally abandoned her interest in the home." My heart stopped. It continued. "We have been the primary occupants for over 3 years." A lie. Brazen. Intentional. The letter wasn't dated, but it was ready, prepared for when they needed it. My hands shook as I lowered the paper. Then something clicked inside me, sharp and final. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't entitlement without awareness. This wasn't selfishness. This was a plan. A long one. A deliberate one. A family conspiracy to take my life apart and claim the pieces as theirs. I felt everything at once: grief for the family I wanted to have, anger for the daughter I had forced myself to be, and a cold, steady determination rising through my bones like steel. There were moments in life where you didn't get to choose whether you became stronger. Life just handed you the kind of betrayal that forced you to evolve. I picked up the letter and took a picture. Then I whispered into the empty room, "You started this." My voice didn't tremble. "You won't finish it." I returned to the living room, sat cross-legged among the papers, and began drafting a timeline: every incident, every expense, every violation. By midnight, I had built the bones of a case. By 1 a.m., I had scanned every document into a protected archive. By 2, I had a folder titled Ward Family Evidence. And by 3, as the first thin streaks of morning light crept through the blinds, I closed my laptop with a slow, intentional breath. Tomorrow they would be in the Bahamas, sipping cocktails, laughing, taking photos, posting videos, believing nothing could touch them. But I knew something they didn't. Revenge didn't always begin with fire. Sometimes it began with documentation. Sometimes it began with silence. Sometimes it began with a daughter finally deciding she was done being used. I looked around the house that had once symbolized hope. Then I whispered the words that sealed the night. I'm selling this place. And for the first time in years, I felt free. The morning after I finished the evidence archive, I woke up on the couch with my laptop still open beside me and papers spread across the floor like fallen leaves. My neck ached, my eyes burned, and my whole body felt like it had been carved out of something stiff and fragile. But my mind was sharp. Too sharp, sharp enough to hurt. The house was quiet, but it wasn't the peaceful quiet of solitude. It was the echo of years of noise finally silenced. Years of manipulation complaints, demands, footsteps slamming doors, arguments muffled through walls. Years of me disappearing a little more every time someone else wanted something from me. Now that quiet felt like the aftermath of a storm I'd pretended wasn't happening. I sat up slowly and checked my phone. A dozen notifications flashed across the screen. Travel selfies from Bella's Instagram. Photos of her in an airport lounge holding a mimosa with the caption, "When you manifest good things the universe provides." A video of my mother fanning herself dramatically in a reclining chair saying, "Cruise life is where I belong." And one of Bella's smug poses in front of the giant cruise ship, tagging the luxury line and writing, "Let the ocean heal me." Blessed, Satur deserved. My chest tightened with something I couldn't name, not jealousy, not sadness, something sharper, something cleaner. Resolve. I clicked the topmost video. Bella giggled into the camera, her face illuminated by morning sunlight. "Shout out to my family for always supporting my dreams," she said, winking. "You guys are my rock." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. She didn't mention me. She didn't mention the money she'd stolen. She didn't mention the lies in the basement or the bills or the wreckage she and Troy left all over the house. Of course she didn't. Her world was curated, sanitized, edited. I wasn't part of her brand unless she needed a villain. I set the phone down and exhaled slowly. I couldn't confront them. Not yet. Not emotionally and certainly not legally. I had to move deliberately, not impulsively. That was something I knew how to do. My profession had trained me for it. Follow the money track, the pattern map, the timeline, execute the plan. I needed to get the house emptied and prepared for sale before they returned. And I needed to make sure the sale was irreversible. I cracked my stiff joints, and went upstairs to change out of the clothes I'd slept in. When I passed Bella's room again, a familiar scent wafted out coconut hairspray synthetic sweetness. I paused. Something about the room tugged at me. I pushed the door open wider, clothing racks bowing under fast fashion weight. Makeup palettes cracked open. Piles of high heels scattered like confetti. A fake fern knocked over in the corner, the vanity light still on buzzing faintly. And on the bed the diamond necklace, the one she'd bought with my card. I picked it up by the chain and watched the pendant swing, catching light from the window. It shimmered like something expensive, but up close I could see the imperfections. The stones weren't real. They were high-quality cubic zirconia. The receipt said diamonds because Bella had chosen an option with upgrade stones. She'd paid thousands of dollars for something fake. No, she hadn't paid. I had. The weight of the necklace in my hand felt like distilled entitlement, unapologetic, glittering absurd. I set it back down and walked out before the anger inside me hardened into something dangerous. Downstairs I made coffee, strong, bitter, grounding. As I drank it, I opened my laptop and began drafting a message for a local real estate investor. Not a traditional agent. Not someone who would require staged photos and open houses and stable tenants. No. I needed someone who bought distressed properties in cash. fast. It didn't take long to find a short list of names. People who flipped, rebuilt, rezoned, and demolished without blinking. One name stood out: Kenneth Hale, a developer known for tearing down single-family homes and replacing them with sleek 4-unit builds that yuppies loved. Perfect. I sent a message through his website contact form attaching a few photos of the property, careful to avoid the mess inside. I wrote that the house needed significant cleanup and that I was looking for a quick sale. I hit send. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello, is this Ms. Ward?" a deep voice asked. "Yes, this is Ken Hale. You're selling the house on Alderbrook, yes," I said, sitting up straighter. "I'm looking to close fast." "How fast? As fast as possible." He exhaled thoughtfully. "What's the condition?" "Structurally sound," I said. "Cosmetic damage, needs cleaning, needs everything removed." I hesitated, then added, "And the current occupants are gone for at least 10 days. He caught the implication instantly. "Ah, so you need it vacant and sold before they come back." My silence was confirmation. He chuckled, not unkindly. "I've dealt with this before. You'd be surprised how many families turn investment properties into personal dens of chaos." "Oh, I wouldn't be surprised at all." "What's the address?" he asked. I gave it to him. "I can send my assistant to evaluate today," he said. "If the numbers make sense, I'll offer cash. No contingencies." Relief spread through me, cool and steady. That works for me. After we hung up, I allowed myself one long breath. It wasn't done, but it was in motion. I wasn't stalling anymore. I wasn't giving them another chance. I wasn't swallowing the hurt and hoping it would magically turn into harmony. I was done. I put on my shoes and drove to a moving supply store where I bought boxes, labels, contractor-grade trash bags, gloves, and a tape gun. The cashier, a woman in her 50s, glanced at the pile and said, "Big move ahead." "You could say that," I replied. Her smile was kind, almost maternal. Moves are hard, but they're good for the soul. I held on to that sentence longer than I expected. Back at the house, I rolled up my sleeves and started packing. Anything that was legally mine went into labeled boxes. Anything belonging to them went into trash bags. I didn't bother separating nice from cheap, sentimental from worthless. I wasn't donating, organizing, or curating. I was cleansing. Every bag I filled made the air feel lighter. Their shoes, their half-finished candles, their half-broken electronics, their endless clothing, their tangled jewelry, Bella's PR packages and unopened skincare bottles and fake designer handbags. All of it went. At one point, I found a drawer full of takeout menus and coupon books. The drawer beneath contained nothing but debt collection notices, none addressed to me, all addressed to Troy. He'd been using my address to avoid consequences. I tossed those too. Halfway through cleaning, my phone buzzed again. Bella, not calling, not texting, posting, a video of her doing a slow spin on the deck of the cruise ship, the ocean sparkling behind her. In the caption, she wrote, "When you're finally appreciated for who you are." I stared at those words, my tongue pressed against my teeth. Appreciated. My hands curled into fists. I turned off notifications for her account. I didn't want to see another moment of her parasitic joy. By afternoon, the first floor looked like a storm surge had receded, bare floors, empty surfaces, trash bags piled near the front door. The work was exhausting but cleansing in a way I hadn't expected. Every layer I peeled back revealed more of myself. Around 4 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a man in a charcoal raincoat holding a clipboard. "Ms. Ward, I'm Dylan," he said. "I'm here to assess the Alderbrook property for Mr. Hale." "Come in," I said. He stepped inside and paused, eyebrows raised, as he surveyed the emptying room. "Looks like you've already done half my job." "I'm preparing to sell," I replied. He nodded, taking notes. "Anyone else living here? No. And they won't be returning, not before the sale." He nodded again, professional, non-judgmental, efficient. He walked through each room, snapping photos, checking the basement, the attic, the backyard. When he finished, he closed his clipboard and said, "You'll hear from Mr. Hale by tonight." After he left, I continued cleaning until my arms shook from strain. At around 9, my phone rang with a familiar unknown number. I answered. Ms. Ward Hale said, "I'll make this simple. I'll offer $970,000 cash. Close in 72 hours. My back pressed against the wall for support. My breath left me in a small, stunned exhale. The offer was generous, more than generous. Above market value. Why so high, I asked. Because I want the lot, he said plainly. And I like sellers who don't complicate things. I accept, I said. Good, he replied. My lawyer will email the contract tonight. And Ms. Ward, yes. Make sure the property is empty before closing. No furniture, no belongings, no problem, I said. Everything will be gone. After he hung up, I leaned my head against the wall. My throat tightened, not with doubt, but with the weight of a decision finally made. This was happening. I was selling the house, and they would come home to nothing they recognized. I went to bed at midnight exhausted, surrounded by boxes. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows. I made coffee and stepped outside onto the porch, breathing in the crisp air. And then my phone buzzed. A missed call from a number with a Caribbean country code, then another, then 8 more, 10 missed calls, then 15, then 20. The 20th voicemail began with my mother's voice, shrill and panicked. Jenna, answer the phone. There's something wrong with the card. The resort says, just call me back. Now. Another voicemail. Bella, hysterical. Where are you? The bill isn't going through. Fix it, fix it. Another. Troy, what did you do? Call me back or I swear. More calls, more voicemails, more desperation, more proof. Their nightmare was beginning. And my freedom had already started. The first voicemail I listened to wasn't from my mother or my sister. It was from the resort manager. Ms. Ward, this is Ocean Crest Luxury Resorts calling to verify some payment discrepancies associated with your suite. We've attempted to process charges linked to your account, but the card is being declined. If you could call us back, I deleted the message before it finished. I didn't want their voices in my phone any longer than necessary. I didn't want their panic crawling under my skin the way their entitlement always had. Their crisis was not my problem, not anymore. But the voicemails kept coming one after another, each more frantic than the last. Jenna, what did you do? They're saying we need to pay immediately. Pick up the phone, Jenna. The restaurant won't let us leave. The card isn't working. Fix it. My mother's voice, usually so composed when she wanted something, was now ragged, trembling with fear and humiliation. Jenna, answer this call right now. We're standing in the lobby. They say the suite isn't paid for. They say we have to move to a standard room if we can't provide another form of payment. What is going on? You better not be playing games. Answer. The phone. I let the messages pile up without listening to the rest. Their world was cracking open, and for once I wasn't the one holding the pieces together. I took my coffee outside and sat on the porch steps while the sun rose over the quiet street. Children rode past on bicycles. A man walked his dog. Sprinklers chirped in nearby lawns. Ordinary life continued around me, gentle and undisturbed. This was the peace I used to imagine owning. This was the peace they had stolen from me, and now I was reclaiming it piece by piece. My phone buzzed again. A text from Bella. Answer. Right, now. Then another. Did you freeze the card? Are you insane? Then another. I'm crying in the middle of the lobby and Mom is shaking. Fix it, I didn't reply. Instead, I went inside and began sealing the boxes I had packed the night before. The tape screeched across cardboard, loud and satisfying. I carried each box to the garage, stacking them neatly. Every trip felt like shedding old skin. I was halfway through loading another box when my phone rang. This time the caller ID displayed one name I always picked up. Rachel. Hey, I said, breathing hard as I set the box down. You okay? She asked immediately. I hesitated. It struck me how few people ever asked me that without expecting something in return. I think so. My office is 3 blocks from a Caribbean consulate, she said lightly. I can break in and intercept your family if you want. A laugh escaped me, unexpected, sharp, but real. No breaking in. Not yet. So, is it happening? I wiped sweat from my forehead. It's happening. They're calling nonstop. Oh, they're panicking, she said knowingly. They're finally feeling consequences. I didn't respond right away. The word consequences sat on my tongue like a truth I'd waited my whole life to taste. Jenna, Rachel said more softly, just remember they created this mess. You're cleaning it up. I know. That house isn't a home, she continued. It's a battlefield. You're allowed to walk away. My throat tightened a little. Thank you. Come by later, she said. I made soup. I might. We hung up, and for a moment I stood in the garage, surrounded by the remnants of a life I'd tried so hard to build with people who didn't want me. They wanted what I could give. I went back inside and returned to packing. By noon, the house felt strangely empty. By 2, I had a system: sort, seal, move, repeat. The more I worked, the more I understood how much I had tolerated, how much I had excused, how much of myself I had given away in the name of being supportive or helpful or the strong one. Being strong was overrated. Being free was better. Around 3 o'clock, I wiped dust off my hands and looked around. The house was nearly barren. The walls echoed when I walked. My footsteps didn't compete with the noise of anyone else's life. Then my phone rang again, another unknown number. But something intuition maybe told me to answer. Hello, is this Ms. Ward? A calm voice asked. Yes. This is Office Administrator Patel from the King County Clerk's Office. I'm contacting you regarding a quiet title inquiry submitted earlier this month listing you as the former occupant of I Stopped Breathing. A quiet title inquiry, I repeated. Yes, he said. We received a preliminary inquiry from a third party asking about occupancy history and tax responsibility on your property. Your name was listed as having relinquished residence at the address. We require verification before allowing the inquiry to proceed. My pulse hammered. Who submitted the inquiry? I asked. I'm only permitted to share the name attached, he replied. The request was submitted by a Lorraine Whitford, my mother's maiden name. I sat down on the floor. My knees felt hollow. Ms. Ward, he asked. Thank you, I managed. I'll provide verification shortly. After we ended the call, I stared at the empty hallway. They had actually done it. They had already begun the process. They had set a legal trap under my feet, assuming I would never look down to see it. My family hadn't just used me. They hadn't just manipulated me. They hadn't just stolen from me. They had been preparing to erase me. Every room in the house suddenly felt smaller. I forced myself to stand and move toward the kitchen, needing something to hold on to water, air, anything. But before I could open a cabinet, a sudden anger surged through me so strong I had to grip the counter to steady myself. They almost stole my home. My financial security, my autonomy, my future, no more. With new focus, I pulled out my laptop and began uploading evidence to an external drive: scans, photos, timelines. I updated a document mapping every financial violation they had committed. I added the quiet title call to the list. The list was long, longer than I ever wanted it to be. When I finished organizing everything, I opened my email and wrote to the county clerk for official verification of my residence history. Then I drafted a notarized statement refuting any abandonment of the property. After sending those, I emailed Hale's assistant, all belongings will be cleared. House will be vacant by agreed deadline. Please confirm closing time. Their reply was immediate. Confirmed. Noon, 3 days from now. Deposit transfer scheduled. A weight lifted from my shoulders. It was happening. It was real. The house, they couldn't steal it from me anymore. I was leaving them with nothing to take. I returned to cleaning, moving room to room like a woman undoing a curse. Every step felt lighter. Every item I removed felt like reclaiming a part of myself I thought was gone. Around 6, exhaustion pulled at every muscle. I sat on the living room floor and leaned against the bare wall, letting silence fill the space. For the first time in years, the house felt honest. Brutal, but honest. Then my phone buzzed again. A text from Bella. Mom's crying in the hallway of the resort. We can't check back into the suite. They downgraded us. They made us pack. Fix it right now. Her next message came seconds later. Jenna, are you actually doing this? I stared at the screen. Then I typed back a single sentence. Yes, not an apology, not an explanation, not a justification, just the truth. 3 dots appeared like she was typing, then disappeared. Appeared again, then vanished. Finally, her last message came. You're going to regret this. I locked the phone. No, I wouldn't regret this. They would. I stood up, collected the last full trash bag, and tied it tight. As I carried it to the front door, I caught my reflection in the window, tired, covered in dust hair, messy eyes red. But there was something new there, too. Strength, not the kind they demanded from me, not the kind built from endurance or silence. A different strength, sharper, braver, mine. I opened the door, stepped into the fading evening light, and dragged the bag to the curb. Then I whispered something I had never said out loud, not even to myself. They can't hurt me anymore. Inside the house waited empty, ready, unburdened. And for the first time, so was I. By the time the next morning arrived, my body ached in places I didn't know existed. My forearms throbbed from lifting boxes. My back felt like it had fought a war. My knees cracked every time I bent. But none of it compared to the strange clarity humming beneath my skin. It was like stepping into a version of myself I'd never allowed to breathe before. I made coffee, sat on the porch, and watched the street wake up while my phone vibrated nonstop beside me. I didn't check the messages. I didn't need to. I already knew what panic looked like when it came from people who had never learned to be accountable. The world was no longer bending around their demands. For once, it wasn't bending around anything but my own decisions. The doorbell rang mid-sip. I set the mug aside and opened the door to find a man in a reflective vest holding a clipboard. "Morning," he said. "Delivery for a full-service clean-out. Contracted for today," I blinked. "Already scheduled for 9 a.m. He checked the form. "Ordered by a Jenna Ward." "That's me," I said, stepping back. "Come in." Within minutes, 3 trucks pulled onto the street, white unmarked industrial. A crew of about 10 people stepped out, gloved and ready, moving with the kind of precision that only came from seeing 1,000 ruined houses before breakfast. Their leader, a broad-shouldered man with thick eyebrows and a calm voice, gave me a nod. "Name's Alvarez," he said. "You want a standard clear-out or the kind where nothing's left standing but the paint?" "Everything goes," I replied. "Nothing inside stays." His eyebrows lifted, slightly impressed. "Understood." He gestured to his team. "Let's go, people." The house erupted into motion. Men and women lugged trash bags, boxes, broken furniture, shattered decor, everything my family had ever touched, straight to the driveway. The air filled with the thuds of items hitting dumpsters, the scrape of heavy objects dragged across the floor, the rip of contractor bags being stretched wide and stuffed full. I stood in the doorway, amazed at how quickly chaos transformed into order. Alvarez approached me again. "Any sentimental value items you want set aside?" he asked. I considered the question carefully. "No," I said. "If it belonged to them, it's trash." He nodded. "Copy that." As the crew worked, I walked room to room, almost floating above myself. The carpet stains faded beneath industrial vacuums. The broken curtain rods came down. The walls, scarred from years of disregard, began to show themselves clearly for the first time. For so long, this house felt like a burden I was dragging. Now it felt like a snake shedding skin. I paused in the doorway of the master bedroom, my parents' room. I watched 2 workers dismantle the heavy wooden bed frame. It had belonged to my grandmother originally. She'd given it to my parents with love, saying, "A bed is the heart of a home." It struck me how ironic that felt now. The home they built on this bed wasn't a heart. It was a parasite. I stepped in, running my fingers along the wall, feeling the indentations left by furniture that had sat here for decades. A memory flashed, a younger me, maybe 14, standing in this room while my mother criticized my clothes. "Why can't you look more like Bella?" she'd asked, irritated. She has presents. She'll go places. Places. Yes, Bella had gone places, right into a luxury cruise suite paid for with stolen money. I left the room before the old emotions could drag claws through my chest. Downstairs, a new rhythm filled the space boxes, moving heavy boots on wood voices calling instructions. I had asked for every object touched by them to be removed, and Alvarez's team didn't hesitate. Even objects I hadn't noticed were whisked away. Old holiday decorations, expired spices, stacks of magazines Bella had claimed she'd use for a vision board, crumpled receipts from takeout they never paid for, junk mail with my name scribbled out so they could pretend ownership. Everything. Around noon, I took a break on the porch steps. My phone buzzed again, dozens of missed calls. The resort had clearly cut off their access to luxury, and by now they were probably being escorted somewhere less glamorous. I imagined them in the lobby, cheeks red with embarrassment, arguing loudly that there must be a mistake. But there wasn't. Not anymore. The door opened behind me, and Alvarez stepped outside, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We're making good time," he said. "Place is almost empty." "Thank you," I replied. "You doing okay?" he asked, studying my expression the way people do when they suspect a deeper story. "Yes," I said simply. "You've got steel in you," he said with a small smile. Not many people make decisions this clean. I didn't feel clean, but I felt decisive, and that was enough. When he returned inside, I stood stretched sore muscles and went back to work on the garage. I pulled open the old cabinets and found more things I hadn't seen in years. A stack of letters from my college days, most of them unopened. My mother had said she lost them. A bag full of expired medications my father was supposed to take daily for blood pressure, heart, cholesterol. I'd reminded him a dozen times. He'd waved me off saying, "Your mother says I'm fine." A box full of Bella's old-school trophies, participation medals she'd cried over, until my parents had them displayed on the living room shelf, as if she'd earned something monumental. I sat on the cold concrete floor for a moment, holding the open box. This family had been a house of illusions, a house where lies were easier than responsibility, a house where I learned to shrink so they could stretch. A sharp pang of grief touched me, real grief. Not for them, but for what I wished I'd had instead. A family that cared, a mother who nurtured, a father who protected, a sister who respected. What I had received was the inverse of love. I inhaled deeply, set the box aside for disposal, and returned to work. Hours passed. With every load they carried out, the house grew lighter, brighter. It was strange watching the physical manifestation of toxicity being removed piece by piece. The air felt different. Cleaner. By 5 o'clock, the dumpsters were full, every bag tied, every box stacked. The workers gathered near the truck, ready for final instructions. Alvarez approached me again. "We're done," he said. "Take a look." I walked room to room slowly. The living room echoed, the kitchen felt bigger, the bedrooms were bare, the closets held nothing but air. It didn't feel sad, it felt honest. I returned to the foyer. "It's perfect," I said. "We'll sweep once more and lock up," Alvarez said. "You're free to go." I nodded, thanked him, and stepped out onto the porch. The sun was dipping toward the horizon, painting the neighborhood gold. The same street I'd once imagined hosting block parties, laughing children, warm dinners. The same street where I'd imagined bringing home someone I loved one day. That dream felt small now, too small for the life I was beginning to glimpse. I grabbed my keys, locked the door, and paused. My hand rested on the doorknob, the metal cool under my fingers. The next time I opened this door, it wouldn't belong to me. It wouldn't belong to them either. I walked to my car slowly, as if pacing myself out of an old version of my life. As I slid into the driver's seat, my phone buzzed again. I checked it this time. 29 missed calls from my mother, 17 from Bella, 9 from unknown resort numbers, 4 voicemails from a number that looked like a local police department. I didn't open any of them, but I did open one message sent only moments earlier from Bella. "You think you're free now? You're not. Wait until we get home." I stared at the screen. Then I typed one reply. "By the time you get home, it won't be your home." I hit send. The message delivered instantly. Then I put the phone face down, started the car, and drove. The house behind me stood hollow-stripped bare, ready for its next chapter. And for the first time in my life, so was I. The morning of the sale began with a strange sense of quiet, the kind that felt less like peace and more like the moment before a fuse reached the dynamite. I woke before sunrise, unable to shake the tension running under my skin. My body was tired, my mind sharp, my emotions muted in that way they get when you know something irreversible is about to happen. I showered, dressed, and tied my hair back the way I always did when I needed to think clearly. Then I walked through the empty house, my footsteps echoing off the bare floors, the walls exposed and honest now that everything else had been stripped away. In the kitchen, the sun pushed through the windows, illuminating dust motes that floated like glitter in the air. It would have been beautiful if I hadn't known exactly what this day meant. Today I would hand over the house. Today, everything changed. My phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't need to check the screen to guess who it might be. They'd been calling all night. The voicemails were identical in tone, panicked, indignant, accusatory, as if I had somehow betrayed them by taking back what was mine. I ignored the vibration, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. I had errands to run before meeting Hale's team, documents to sign, a notary appointment, bank transfers, loose ends that needed trimming so that nothing tied back to me when the family stormed home demanding answers. As I drove through Seattle's early morning traffic, the sky low and heavy with clouds, I rehearsed what I needed to say, what I needed to ask, what I needed to finalize. If the sale went through cleanly, they wouldn't be able to reverse it. Not through guilt, not through legal wrangling, not through the manipulation I'd fallen for every year of my life. This was not just about money. This was about autonomy, about reclaiming the part of me they'd chipped away piece by piece. The notary office sat on a corner downtown, tucked between a coffee shop and a boutique. I arrived early, clutching the thick envelope of documents Hale's lawyer had emailed me. The notary, a woman in a navy blazer and smart glasses, greeted me warmly. "Selling a home?" she asked as she flipped through the paperwork. "Yes," I said. "A good market right now," she added. "Are you staying local? I'm not sure yet," I said truthfully. Her pen hovered above the line that required my signature. "Whenever you're ready." I signed, page after page, my name flowing across the paper like a release of pressure I didn't realize I'd been holding. When I finished, she smiled. "Congratulations. You're officially free of one very large obligation. Free." I repeated the word silently as I left the office. Next, stop the bank. As I waited for the banker to prepare the transfer documents, I caught my reflection in the glass partition. For the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't look tired. I didn't look worn. I looked steady. I completed the wire instructions and transferred legal documents to Hale's escrow attorney. The banker shook my hand, congratulating me on the sale. I nodded politely, but inside something deeper stirred. This wasn't a celebration. It was a severing. When I stepped out onto the sidewalk, my phone buzzed again. I finally checked the screen, a text from the resort's main line. "Urgent guests have been removed from their suite due to non-payment. Additional charges pending. Please contact us immediately." As if I was going to pay for a suite they occupied after stealing from me. Then another message came. "From Bella. You're sick. You know that you ruined our trip." Mom fainted in the lobby. "Dad is furious. Fix this. Right now." I locked the phone and slipped it into my jacket pocket. No response was the only response needed. I made one final stop before returning to the house, a small privately owned storage facility on the outskirts of town. I had rented a single 8x10 unit, climate-controlled, paid for a year in advance. I unlocked it and stepped inside. Inside were 4 boxes. Just 4. Everything I cared about, everything I wanted to preserve, everything that mattered fit in that small space. Childhood photos, a few books, my law school certificate, the quilt my grandmother had made before she lost her eyesight, my laptop backups. The rest was gone. It struck me then how little of my life I truly owned, how much of it had been spent tethered to the weight of other people's expectations. I closed the unit, locked it, and walked back to my car. When I pulled into the driveway of the Alderbrook house, Hale's Range Rover was already there. He stood on the curb checking emails on his phone while his assistant reviewed the property lines with a surveyor. He looked up as I approached. "Ms. Ward," he said, offering a brisk nod. "We're ready for final walkthrough." I unlocked the front door and together we stepped inside. Hale walked through the house with the confidence of someone who had already mentally demolished the place and rebuilt it 10 times over. "Good structure," he said. "Ugly, outdated interior. Lots fantastic. Hard to find this size anymore." He paused in the living room. "You didn't leave anything behind." "No," I said. "Everything is cleared." "Good," he replied. "Saves us time." He didn't ask why the house had looked lived in 3 days ago. He didn't ask about the urgency. He didn't care. Business was business. At the end of the walkthrough, his assistant retrieved a folder. Hale gestured for me to sit at the kitchen island. "This is your final sign-off," he said. "Once you sign, the wire hits your account in the next 30 minutes. The kitchen island was bare now, no stacks of dirty dishes, no makeup bags, no coffee rings left by people who didn't respect the space. Just wood and silence. I signed slowly, deliberately. Each signature felt like reclaiming a part of myself they'd tried to take. When finished, Hale extended his hand. "Pleasure doing business with you." "You too," I said. He left without lingering, already calling his demolition foreman as he headed toward his SUV. I stood in the middle of the empty kitchen, breathing in the still air. It smelled like bleach and dust and something else possibility. Then my phone buzzed. 25 missed calls, 7 voicemails, 12 texts. The latest message from my mother read, "We get back tomorrow. We need to talk." I expect this nonsense to be fixed by then. I stared at the words. They still thought they had control. They still thought I was the maid, the banker, the therapist, the stability they sucked dry. They didn't know anything had changed. A soft knock came from the open doorway. It was the demolition foreman, a tall man with a serious face and a clipboard tucked under his arm. "Ms. Ward, he said we're staging equipment tonight. Demolition begins at 7 a.m. "Sharp tomorrow." I nodded. "Go ahead. If personal items show up on the property before we start, they'll be removed. Just a heads up." "They won't," I said. "No one will be here." He tipped his hat slightly and left. I walked to the front door and stood in the threshold for a long moment. This was the last time I'd see the house standing, the last time I'd step out of it, the last time it would hold the shape of my old life. I stepped outside and locked the door behind me. Then I walked down the driveway without looking back, got into my car and pulled away. At a red light, my phone rang again. This time from a number I didn't recognize, but the kind of number that always meant trouble. A Seattle Police Department dispatch line. I answered. "Ms. Ward. This is Officer Green calling in relation to a disturbance reported at Ocean Crest Luxury Resort." I closed my eyes slowly. "Is my family there?" I asked. "Yes, they are refusing to vacate the property after their suite was downgraded due to non-payment. Security is preparing to escort them off the premises." A beat passed. "Do you wish to authorize any charges on their behalf?" he asked. My voice did not waver. "No, I do not." Another pause. "Understood. We'll proceed accordingly." I hung up. A long breath trembled out of me, not from fear, not from guilt, but from a deep exhale of years of being held underwater. They were unraveling. Their lies were collapsing. And when they came home tomorrow, they would find nothing left. No home, no stability, no free ride, no version of me who would save them. Only consequences, only reality, only silence where their entitlement used to echo. The light turned green. I drove forward into a life that for the first time was fully mine. The morning they arrived in Seattle, the sky was the color of wet concrete, heavy and unmoving. I woke before my alarm, a strange buzzing sensation running through my chest. Today was the day their fantasy collided with reality. Today they would return to Alderbrook and discover the truth no one had ever forced them to face. I wasn't theirs to drain anymore. I made coffee and stood at the window watching the street as if expecting something supernatural to appear. My mind wandered to what their trip must have been like after the card froze downgraded rooms, denied purchases, security escorting them through back hallways like unruly guests. And now, they were on their way back to a house that wasn't theirs, wasn't mine, wasn't anyone's anymore. My phone buzzed on the counter. For once it wasn't them. "Rachel, can I come with you?" her text read. I typed back, "No, I need to face this alone." Her reply was immediate. "Call if you need backup or a body bag." I couldn't help smiling. "I'll text when it's done." I got dressed in clean jeans, a fitted black sweater and boots that made me feel grounded. No makeup, no jewelry, nothing that reflected anything but clarity. Today wasn't about performance. By the time I left for Alderbrook, it was past 11. Demolition crews were already there when I arrived. The giant machines loomed like prehistoric animals, their metal arms arched and ready. The permit signs flapped against the fencing. Caution tape flickered in the wind. My house was half gutted already. The roof at the back had been peeled open. The siding stripped away in places. The deck torn out like rotten teeth. I stood there for a moment, hands tucked into my jacket pockets, letting the sight wash over me. I thought it would hurt more. It didn't. It felt like watching a tumor being removed. A demolition worker nodded at me. "Ms. Ward. Yes, we're pausing until you finish whatever you need inside. Then we'll resume." "No," I said quickly. "I don't need to go inside." He nodded and turned away. I didn't want to step into the skeleton of a life that had been bleeding me dry. I had no interest in picking through memories or letting sentimentality weaken the resolve that had taken me decades to develop. Instead, I walked to the edge of the yard and waited. At 12:07 p.m., a yellow taxi turned onto the street. It hit me instantly it was them. The car slowed as it approached the fencing. The driver leaned forward, double-checking the address. My stomach tightened, not with fear, but with anticipation, the kind you feel when you're about to watch a prophecy unfold. The taxi stopped abruptly in front of the house. No one got out at first. The 4 figures inside froze, staring through the windows at the demolition site. Then the screaming started. My mother's voice burst from the taxi before the doors even opened. "What is that? What is that? Oh my God, stop the car!" The driver already had. The back door flew open and my mother stumbled out, her hair frizzed from humidity, her clothes wrinkled, mascara streaked under her eyes. She stared at the destruction as if witnessing a crime scene. What happened?" she shrieked. My father climbed out slowly. His face pale, his posture slumped like someone who had been drained of every drop of bravado. He clutched the taxi door for balance. Bella shoved past both of them, nearly tripping in her platform sandals. She looked different now, less polished, more human. Her tan was uneven, her eyes swollen from crying. Her clothes didn't match. "Where's the house?" she screamed. The driver stepped out and cleared his throat politely. "Ma'am, fare is $92. My mother snapped, "Not now," but he didn't move. He crossed his arms. "Pay the fare. I'm not leaving without it." My father reached for his wallet, pulled out a folded wad of cash, and handed it to the driver with trembling fingers. The man counted it, pocketed the bills, nodded, and drove off, leaving them standing in front of a demolition site. I watched from several yards away, leaning against my car. They didn't notice me at first. They were too busy breaking open. "What have you done?" my mother screamed at the sky, at the workers, at no one in particular. "This is our home." "It was never your home," I said. Their heads snapped toward me. For a moment, no one spoke. Their eyes widened. My mother's mouth hung open. My father's breathing hitched. Bella's face twisted into something between anger and disbelief. My mother marched toward me, finger pointed like a weapon. "You did this! You tore it down! How dare you tear down our house?" "It wasn't your house," I said evenly. "It was!" she yelled, voice cracking. "We lived here. We took care of it. You hid bills under the stairs and left mold in the walls." "That's not taking care of anything," I replied. Bella stormed toward me. "You sold it. Without telling us, without asking. You sold our house." It wasn't your house, I repeated calmly. You abandoned us, she accused. You left us stranded, you froze the card, you ruined our trip, you stole $14,500 from me, I said. I didn't ruin your trip, you did. My father finally stepped forward. Jenna, sweetheart, we can fix this. No, I said firmly. You can't. My mother shook her head violently. We were going to explain, we were going to talk about the house. You didn't have to. I know about the quiet title paperwork, I said. Her face went gray. And the draft letter claiming I abandoned the property. My father blinked hard. Jenna, and the inquiries you filed with the county clerk. Silence slammed down like a door. My mother tried to speak, but her mouth only opened and closed like she was drowning. My father sagged against the fence. Bella's hands shook visibly. Finally, my mother croaked, We were confused. We didn't mean. Yes, I said softly. You did. You meant all of it. Bella glared. You're evil. No, I said. I'm done. The demolition foreman approached us. Ma'am, are these people authorized to be here? No, I said before they could answer. They need to leave. He nodded to security. My mother's face crumpled. Jenna, please. We have nowhere to go. You had somewhere to go, I replied. You had access to everything I built, until you tried to take it from me. We were your family, she whispered. No, I said. You were my responsibility, and I'm done carrying you. Tears filled her eyes. Where are we supposed to go? To the motel you stayed in last night, I said. Or anywhere that isn't funded by me. My father wiped his forehead. We don't have money, Jenna. Not my problem anymore, I said. Bella looked at me with raw hatred. You'll regret this. I met her gaze. I regret every year I let you use me. But this, I gestured toward the half-demolished house. This is the first thing I don't regret at all. Security stepped closer. My mother dropped to her knees in the dirt. My father knelt beside her, shoulders shaking. Bella backed away, trembling, screaming at me, at the workers, at the universe. And I felt nothing. No guilt, no triumph, no grief, just release. As security escorted them down the sidewalk, my mother sobbing into her hands, my father whispering broken apologies, Bella cursing me with every breath, I turned away and faced the machines. The foreman lifted his hand. A massive metal claw rose into the air, paused, then slammed into the roof with a deafening crash. Wood splintered, glass exploded. The house collapsed in on itself like a dying beast. I watched the destruction without blinking. This wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. The first night after the demolition felt strangely quiet, even in my apartment downtown, where the city never really slept. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of traffic. Each vibration of passing cars felt like a reminder that something monumental had shifted. The house was gone. The problem gone. The version of me they fed on for years gone. But peace didn't come instantly. It hovered just out of reach like a light I could see through the fog but hadn't yet stepped into. I made myself tea at 2 a.m., pacing the kitchen barefoot, replaying the moment the roof caved in. Replay wasn't the right word, it wasn't memory. It was release replaying itself in my mind like a final cleansing. I didn't sleep until nearly 4. When I finally woke again, sunlight had already spilled across the kitchen floor, warm and golden. It took me a beat to remember where I was, that there were no messes downstairs waiting for me. No demands, no footsteps, no voices echoing through the hallways. Just quiet. My phone was on the nightstand face down. When I flipped it over, there were 47 unread messages. I clicked on none of them. I made breakfast eggs, toast, fresh fruit. I sat at my table for the first time in months without needing to clean a space for myself. I drank coffee while looking out at the skyline, the Space Needle faintly visible in the morning haze. I didn't have to rush anywhere. I didn't have a house to fix. I didn't have a problem waiting for me in my driveway. It was the freest I'd felt in years. But peace never lasts when people like my family are involved. Around noon, my phone buzzed again, not a text, not a voicemail, a call. From a number I recognized the local precinct. I answered immediately. "Is this Jenna Ward?" a male officer asked. "Yes, this is Officer Delaney. We have a situation involving 3 individuals who listed you as their emergency contact." My blood went cold. "My mother?" I asked, among others. "They were involved in a disturbance at the motel near the interstate. Management called the police due to noise complaints and property damage." "We need you to come down to discuss." "No," I cut in. "I'm not their emergency contact anymore." There was silence. Then he cleared his throat. "Ms. Ward, your mother insisted you'd come. She said you were responsible." The word responsible slid under my skin like a needle. "No," I said again, calmer this time. "I'm not. Whatever happened, they are not under my care." He hesitated. "Are you sure, ma'am?" "They're insisting, officer," I said, choosing my tone carefully. "I just severed ties with them legally and financially. I filed documentation removing myself as guarantor for my parents' debts. I am not liable for any behavior or costs incurred by them." He exhaled slowly. "Understood. We'll proceed accordingly." "Is anyone injured?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. "There were no physical injuries," he replied. "Just a verbal altercation that got out of hand." "Property damage. They'll likely be asked to vacate." "Then there's nothing for me to do," I said. When I hung up, I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I didn't unlock my phone to read their messages. Instead, I stepped out onto my balcony and breathed in the fresh air. People walked below, going about their lives. I wasn't in crisis. I wasn't in chaos. My life was my own. Later that afternoon, Rachel stopped by unannounced. She held a paper bag and wore a look that was equal parts concern and something like admiration. "I brought pad thai," she said, "and dumplings, and wine. Because I figured today might be a food and wine day." I stepped aside to let her in. "Thank you." She placed everything on the kitchen counter and looked at me closely. "You look different." "Exhausted, no," she said. "Unburdened." I didn't answer. She opened the wine. We sat on the couch eating lunch in companionable silence. The city buzzed outside. It felt normal, the kind of normal I used to dream about. Finally, Rachel asked softly, "How did it feel?" Watching it come down, I didn't have to think about it. Like breathing for the first time. She nodded as if she already knew. "And they," she asked, panicked, screamed, threatened lawsuits. Then cried. She sipped her wine. "And you," I stood there, I said, and I felt nothing. "Well," she said bluntly, "that's called being done." We shared a small smile. Then she reached into her bag and handed me a manila folder. "This came from your lawyer." I raised an eyebrow as I opened it. Inside were the finalized sale documents, signed, notarized, filed, a copy of the wire confirmation, and a letter from the demolition firm confirming the property was fully cleared. I guess I whispered, "It's really over." She squeezed my hand. "It's over." But peace, as I learned quickly, was still a negotiation. That evening, as I sat on the couch reading through the documents again, my phone buzzed. A different number this time. "Unknown," I answered. "Jenna," a voice whispered. My spine stiffened. "Mom," her breath hitched. Why would you do this to us?" I closed my eyes. "Why would you steal from me? Why would you file paperwork to take my house?" She burst into tears. Not soft tears. Violent, choking sobs. "We didn't mean it. We didn't mean for it to go this far." "Yes," I said evenly, "you did. You planned it." "No," she cried harder. "Your sister was struggling. She needed something stable. We thought we could sort it out quietly. You weren't supposed to find out." I leaned forward. "You were going to take my home, Mom. It was just a backup plan," she yelled. "A backup plan," I repeated. "For who?" "For your sister," she snapped. "She deserves a chance at life. She deserves support. She deserves stability. And I don't." She froze. For once in her life, she was speechless. I continued, quieter. "I deserved a mother. I didn't get one." Her sobs began again. "We're homeless, Jenna. Do you understand homeless? Your father is sick. Your sister is depressed, and I don't have anything left. You took everything." "No," I said softly. "I stopped giving you everything." "It's the same thing," she whispered. That sentence told me everything I ever needed to know. I inhaled slowly. "I'm hanging up now." "Jenna, please, please, I'm begging you." But I ended the call. I turned off my phone. I set it face down on the table, and for the next several minutes I sat completely still. I expected guilt to creep in. It didn't. I expected doubt. It didn't. I expected grief. It flickered briefly, then dissolved. What I felt instead was a quiet truth settling into place. I didn't abandon them. I simply stopped letting them abandon me. The night stretched on. I opened the balcony door again, letting the cool breeze sweep into the room. Cars passed. People laughed on the street below. Someone played jazz music softly from a nearby apartment. Life moved forward, and so did I. Around midnight, I finally turned my phone back on, not to check my mother's messages, but to text someone else. Rachel. "Thank you today, for being here." Her response came immediately, always. "Now get some sleep. Tomorrow is a new life." I placed my phone on the nightstand again, turned off the light and lay back. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I fell asleep without bracing for disaster. The next few days unfolded in a strange blend of calm and tension, like the feeling of walking across a bridge that was still standing, but had begun to sway underfoot. I went to work. I cooked real meals again. I slept through the night without jolting awake to the sound of phantom arguments echoing from a house I no longer owned. The city felt brighter, louder, more alive, as if reclaiming space in my chest where dread used to live. But beneath the surface, something was shifting, not inside me, around me. People like my mother and sister didn't disappear quietly. They didn't retreat and reflect. They didn't learn. When their world collapsed, they tried to rebuild it by taking pieces from someone else's. Their favorite target had always been me. And I could feel them stirring again. It started on a Wednesday morning while I was analyzing financial reports at my desk. My phone buzzed once, twice, then kept vibrating until I finally picked it up. A text from an unknown number read, "You need to see this." I frowned. Before I could respond, another text came, this time from a coworker, Hannah. "Are you okay? Please tell me this isn't true." Then another from Mark on the audit team. "Ignore the noise. HR knows rumors spread." My stomach tightened. I opened my browser and immediately saw it. A post trending on a local community Facebook group. A picture of my parents standing outside the demolished remains of the Alderbrook house. Dirt smeared on my mother's face. My father leaning on her shoulder, both appearing broken. Above the photo was a caption posted by someone with a familiar last name. They devoted their whole lives to their daughter. She repaid them by selling their home while they were out of state. They came back to nothing, not even a warning. Please share so this injustice isn't forgotten. Bella. Of course it was Bella. The comments were a mix of outrage and sympathy. Who could do that to their parents? This is elder abuse. She should be ashamed of herself. Kids today have no morals. My heart pounded, not from guilt, but from fury. They were spinning a narrative faster than I could breathe. I scrolled further down and found another post, this one from a community forum, Beware of Jenna Ward, a woman willing to make her parents homeless for profit. She needs help. Someone had shared photos of me from years ago, smiling at company events tagged publicly on social media. Others shared screenshots of my LinkedIn, my work info, my employer's name. My chest tightened, breath shortening. They were dragging my professional life into this. They wanted to ruin me publicly. I grabbed my phone and called Rachel. She answered on the first ring. "Hey, did you see Yes?" I said sharply. "Your sister's been posting for hours," she replied. Several hate pages already picked it up. I rubbed my forehead hard. "This is defamation." "It is," she said. "And that's good, because now they've crossed into territory I can handle legally." I paced the length of my office, adrenaline crawling through my veins. They know the truth doesn't matter as much as the narrative. "Then we change the narrative," she said. Not by arguing with them, not by feeding chaos, by showing the truth. What truth? I nearly snapped. No one wants nuance. No, she said calmly. But they love receipts. She told me to send her every piece of evidence, the hidden bills, the credit card charge, the quiet title draft, the basement envelopes, the house condition, the recordings. She'd organize them into a public statement if necessary. Before we hung up, she added, they overplayed their hand. People like Bella always do. I didn't feel relief yet. My body buzzed with too much tension for that. When I returned to my screen, I saw that the post had accumulated hundreds of reactions. I clicked the comments again, scrolling faster, heart-hammering, until I found something different. A new comment, from a username I didn't recognize. Elaborate, because I live near Alderbrook, and that house was demolished in a permitted project by Rourke Development. The property wasn't in their name. I blinked. Another comment appeared seconds later. The county records show the house sold legally. Nobody can sell a home that isn't theirs. Another, isn't this the influencer girl who charged a cruise to someone else's card? The tide was turning already. People weren't as gullible as Bella hoped. Then someone shared a link to a video, a short clip filmed by a neighbor during the demolition. It showed my mother falling to her knees, screaming at the sky. It showed Bella pulling at her own hair. It showed me standing at a distance, the calm one, the composed one, while the house came down. Viewers didn't interpret it the way my family hoped. Why are they acting like they were evicted? They look unhinged. The daughter seems weirdly calm, which means she probably has a reason. I heard they never paid bills and destroyed the interior. Search the county record. Yep, she owned the place alone. Bella tried replying to comments, shouting in all caps, making new accusations, inventing details that made their side sound tragic and mine cruel. But every time she responded more, people dug. More people fact-checked. More people exposed her. By noon, a well-known local drama page on Instagram reposted the video with the caption, "Messy Family Business." Stay tuned. 5,000 likes in 2 hours. I closed the browser and pressed my hands against my eyes. This wasn't how I wanted the truth to come out through social media battles and gossip pages. But the situation wasn't under my control anymore, and maybe I realized that wasn't a bad thing. Around 4, while I sat reviewing case files at my desk, my phone buzzed again. This time, Rachel was calling. "What's happening now?" I asked before she spoke. "Your mother just held an impromptu press interview in front of the motel." My blood drained. "What, she invited local reporters? Trying to frame you as a monster?" Rachel exhaled. "It's a circus, Jenna." She's shaking, crying, waving documents in the air like props. My stomach twisted. What documents? A letter she forged saying they lived at the house legally. Unbelievable. "Oh no, it gets better," Rachel said dryly. In the background of the video, Bella is yelling at a reporter because he asked for proof. I rubbed my forehead hard. "And your father?" I asked quietly. Rachel hesitated. He's standing behind them, not talking, not defending. He looks like he wants to evaporate. Something sharp twisted in my chest at that. Maybe he wasn't innocent, but he wasn't the mastermind. He was the coward trying not to drown as the manipulator pulled him under. "What happens now?" I whispered. "That depends on you," Rachel said. "Do you want to let the circus burn out, or do you want to end their narrative?" Images of the house collapsing flashed behind my eyes. The quiet I'd dreamed of, the peace I wanted. Ending their narrative wouldn't be revenge. It would be closure. "What do you suggest?" I asked. "I suggest," she said, "that you let me release the evidence. Clean, organized, truthful, undeniable." I exhaled. "Do it." "On it," she said. "Stay off your phone. It's going to explode." She wasn't wrong. Within an hour, the evidence page she created titled "The Full Story" began circulating. Screenshots, bills, the quiet title inquiry, the hidden envelopes, the credit card charge, the basement, the lawyer's letter, the demolition permits. Everything laid out clearly, calmly, without commentary. And the internet reacted instantly, so they were stealing. She did what she had to do. This is why boundaries matter. Imagine raising a child just to financially exploit her. They made their daughter the villain in a story where they were the abusers. The tide didn't just turn, it flooded. Bella tried to fight it, posting crying videos accusing me of hacking her accounts, claiming the evidence was taken out of context. But no one believed her. My mother tried 2 rambling comments about love sacrifice and misunderstandings, but screenshots of her forged letter circulated next. My father finally posted a single line under one of the threads. "I'm sorry, Jenna." 3 words. A lifetime of too little too late. But they still hit something inside me. By evening, the story had become a cautionary tale on 3 different forums, each retelling it with increasing clarity. A daughter financially abused, parents who tried to steal her home, a sister who crossed every boundary, consequences that finally caught up. I sat on my couch late that night, phone buzzing every few seconds with new notifications, supportive messages from strangers, coworkers checking in, old classmates sending quiet, "I'm proud of you" notes. The world finally saw the truth. And yet, I felt a strange ache blooming in my chest, not for them, but for the years I lost, the years I spent trying to earn love from people who were never capable of giving it. My phone buzzed again, a text from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it until I saw the preview. "Jenna, can we talk, please?" My father. I stared at the message. The ache in my chest deepened, not pain, but something quieter and sadder. Tomorrow I would answer him. But tonight, I let myself finally grieve the family I'd wished for, not the one I had. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for walking away. My father's message sat on my phone like a weight I wasn't sure I wanted to pick up. I kept the screen dark for hours, staring at the city from my balcony as dusk melted into deep blue. Even when the wind picked up and the traffic below thinned to a low hum, I didn't move. I wasn't afraid to speak to him. I wasn't angry anymore. I just didn't know what version of him I'd be talking to, the man who stayed silent for decades, or the man who had finally whispered, "I'm sorry." Eventually, when the night felt still enough, I opened the message. "Jenna, can we talk, please?" Short, hesitant. Nothing like the command-heavy texts of my mother. Nothing like the emotional manipulation I'd grown used to. I typed back, "Tomorrow morning. Coffee shop on 4th and Union, 9 a.m. He replied a minute later, "I'll be there." I put my phone down and let the decision settle. It didn't feel like reopening a wound. It felt like closing one slowly, carefully. Sleep came easier than I expected. The next morning I woke before my alarm, showered, and dressed simply jeans, a soft gray sweater, black boots. I didn't want armor today. I didn't want to show power or distance. I only wanted truth. The coffee shop was half full when I arrived. Soft music, warm lighting, people typing on laptops and sipping lattes like the world around them wasn't full of betrayal and collapse. My father sat near the window, hands wrapped around a cup he wasn't drinking. When he saw me, something broke in his expression, relief, grief, shame, all tangled into one. "Hi, sweetheart," he said softly. I sat across from him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He cleared his throat. "Thank you for meeting me." I nodded. "Okay." I suppose he began slowly. "This is where I should explain myself." I waited, letting him choose his words without helping him. That was new for both of us. "I knew your mother was difficult," he said carefully. "I knew she pushed you, expected too much, ignored too much, but I didn't understand how far things had gone." "You didn't want to understand?" I replied. "There's a difference." His eyes dropped. "You're right." He rubbed his temples. "When you confronted us, when the house was coming down, I saw everything clearly, not just what your mother did, what I didn't do. I stayed silent. I didn't protect you," he whispered. "I didn't stop her. I didn't speak up. And I should have. I should have been the one shielding you from her anger, not adding to the silence around it." A heaviness pressed behind my ribs. He continued. When they dragged me out of that house, when I saw Bella screaming, when I saw your mother blaming everyone but herself, I realized none of this was your fault. It never was. His voice broke slightly. I should have been a father to you. I failed. I swallowed once steady. Why didn't you stop her? I asked quietly. He exhaled a long, fragile breath. Because I spent so many years trying to keep the peace even if it meant losing myself. I thought silence was better than conflict. He paused. But silence is its own kind of cruelty, isn't it? I nodded. Yes, I said, it is. He wiped his eyes with a napkin. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve a single scrap of it. But I want you to know I'm trying. I left your mother yesterday. My breath caught. You what I left, he repeated, eyes meeting mine, with a steadiness I didn't expect. I'm staying with a coworker until I figure out next steps. I told your mother I wouldn't be part of her lies anymore. She screamed. She blamed you. She blamed me. But for the first time, I didn't stay. A strange mix of relief and sadness swirled inside me. That must have been hard, I murmured. It was, he admitted, but not as hard as pretending everything was okay. We sat in silence. Outside the window, traffic rolled by life, moving effortlessly forward. Inside, a chapter that had been stuck open for years was finally beginning to close. I'm not asking for you to let me back in, he said gently. I only want a chance, to try, to be better. I took a slow breath. I don't know what that looks like yet, I said honestly. But I'm not shutting the door. Tears filled his eyes, but he blinked them away quickly. Thank you. We talked for another hour, not about the house or Bella or my mother's spirals. We talked about small things, things we hadn't shared in years. It wasn't easy, it wasn't seamless, but it was real. Before we parted, he placed his hand on mine, not claiming, not guiding, just asking, I'm proud of you, he whispered, for standing up, for walking away. I wish I had your courage. I felt that sentence settle deep inside me. A warm ache, unfamiliar but welcome. After he left, I sat with my coffee until it went cold, letting the moment sink into my bones. Sometimes grief and healing lived in the same breath. At noon, as I walked back toward my apartment, my phone rang. Rachel. Turn on Channel 4 News, she said without preface. I walked faster, turned the corner, and saw a row of TVs inside an electronics shop. One screen displayed the headline, Local Family Dispute Goes Public, New Details Emerge. And then my mother's face, recorded the night before, standing outside the motel, hair disheveled, eyes wild, holding a stack of papers and shouting at reporters. She was unraveling. Not the dramatic kind she used to weaponize. This was pure, uncontrolled panic. Then the reporter's voice narrated, contrary to claims made by the Whitford family, legal documents confirm the Alderbrook property belonged solely to their daughter, who recently sold it. County officials verify that the family had no ownership rights. Additional evidence suggests attempts to file false occupancy claims. The news anchor continued. Experts describe the situation as a case of financial exploitation by family members, sadly not uncommon. I watched in stunned stillness. My mother's face transformed from rage to disbelief to humiliation as the broadcast played footage of the house permit sale documents and a blurred screenshot of the quiet title letter. They exposed everything, every lie, every manipulation, every twisted narrative. They did what I had never been able to do myself. They told the truth publicly. A tremor ran through me, not fear. Something cleaner, something purifying. Vindication. The world wasn't siding with them anymore. The truth wasn't bending around their delusions. Rachel called again. Did you see? She asked. Yes, I breathed. She exhaled a long, satisfied sigh. Good. Let the story stand. Don't engage. Don't correct. Just breathe. I smiled faintly. I can do that. Also, she added, I'm ordering dinner for you tonight. Something carb-heavy. You need it." I laughed softly. "Thank you." After we hung up, I stood in front of the TV screen, letting the news anchor's words echo in my mind. Financial exploitation, property fraud, daughter regained control. Those words built something inside me, a foundation I'd never had before. By the time I reached my apartment again, something had shifted. The weight I'd carried for decades felt lighter. My chest felt open for the first time in years. My phone buzzed as I stepped inside. One text, from a number I recognized far too well. "Bella, you think this is over? Just wait." I stared at the message. Then I finally smiled. This time I wasn't afraid of what came next. Because for the first time in my life I wasn't alone. I wasn't powerless. And I wasn't the version of me they used to control. The next chapter was mine to write. I found out about the protest when I walked out of my office onto the plaza for a breath of cold November air, only to see a crowd gathering near the fountain. Handmade signs, raised voices, a cluster of camera crews. At first, I didn't register what was happening. It wasn't until I heard my own name, loud, sharp, stretched into accusation, that my stomach tightened. Jenna Whitford exploits her own family justice for seniors. She sold their home and left them homeless. I stood at the edge of the crowd, frozen in place, watching as the words I'd lived through were twisted inside out and turned into a public spectacle. And then I saw her. My mother stood on the stone steps of the plaza, clutching a microphone someone had handed her. She looked fragile from a distance, wrapped in a shawl she rarely wore unless she wanted pity. But up close, her eyes told the truth hard, calculating, burning with purpose. Beside her was my sister Bella, wearing oversized sunglasses like she was the victim of paparazzi harassment instead of the architect of her own ruin. Someone even printed her picture on a poster with the words, "Protect vulnerable women from financial abuse." It would have been comical if it didn't sting so deeply. I stepped back into the building before anyone saw me, my pulse pounding in my throat. My assistant rushed toward me the moment the glass doors slid shut. "Don't go near the crowd," she warned. "Security already flagged that it's about your family. The police are monitoring it, but the press is all over it." I brushed a hand across my forehead. How did they even organize this? 2 weeks ago, they couldn't afford lunch. My assistant gave me a sympathetic look. "The internet is a dangerous place when someone's desperate. Looks like your mother's been posting in local community groups. She's getting strangers riled up with half the story." Half the story. A generous description. I walked briskly toward my office, trying to steady the flood of emotions running beneath my skin. Anger, sadness, a deep, almost bone-level exhaustion. Inside my phone blinked with a dozen notifications. Articles, TikToks, Facebook threads, people arguing about my life like it was a morality play they were cast in. But one message stood out, a text from my father. "I'm so sorry. Your mother told them all lies. I didn't know she was doing this. I'll come if you need me." I exhaled slowly. Of all the chaos this family manufactured, his remorse was still the only thread that felt real. Before I could reply, my office door opened and Robert stepped inside. Not the calm attorney I'd met months ago. Not the quiet strength I'd come to rely on. Today he looked ready for war. "I saw the crowd," he said. "And the live stream. Jenna, they're escalating." I noticed I murmured, sinking into my chair. He handed me a tablet. "It's worse than you think." On the screen was a petition titled, "Stop the Abuse of Elderly Parents." Under it, my photo was posted, taken from my office's website. They pulled my biography, my job title, my firm. They were trying to stir public pressure against me. My jaw tightened. "She's using strangers to shame me. She's using strangers to control you," Robert corrected gently. Same tactic, different stage. I looked at him, my voice a whisper. "Why can't she stop?" "Because this time she's lost real power," he replied. "And people like her only know how to survive through manipulation." I let the words settle. He stepped closer. "Jenna, I need you to stay inside the building today. Let security handle the protesters. Let the legal team finalize the restraining order. We're almost done tightening everything. I nodded slowly. Okay. But inside something was beginning to simmer. Fear, no. Shame, not anymore. It was something else. Something colder, clearer, resolve. At noon, a dull roar rose from the plaza, again louder this time. Security radios buzzed. People gathered at the windows. Even from 30 floors up, I recognized the voice on the loudspeaker. My mother, claiming again that I had left them homeless, that I denied them health care, that I destroyed the only home they ever knew. The exact phrases she used to guilt me as a child now rolled across public speakers like a sermon. But then she said something new. She ruined her sister's marriage. She drove her own father to illness. She is sick, mentally unstable, a danger to her own blood. A tear pricked behind my eye, not from pain but disbelief at just how far she would go. Security's voice crackled over the intercom. Ms. Whitford, please remain where you are. The situation is intensifying. I walked to the window. Down below, Bella stepped forward, ripped off her sunglasses dramatically, and pointed upward to my floor, to the very window I was standing behind. There she is, Bella shouted. She's watching. She thinks she's better than us. The crowd turned, hundreds of eyes searching for me. Something inside me snapped. I pulled the office blinds closed with a sharp flick. Robert walked in again, his brow furrowed. You okay? No, I said honestly, but I'm done hiding. I grabbed my coat. Jenna, he warned, do not go out there. I'm not, I said, pushing past him. But I am going downstairs. Security escorted me to the private lobby entrance, not the plaza side. Journalists had swarmed every public door by now. My building's manager met me in the hallway, wringing her hands. They're blocking the main exit, throwing demands at anyone leaving the building. We've notified the city. Police are dispersing them slowly, but your mother refuses to leave. I inhaled deeply. Good, good, the manager echoed. Yes, I said firmly. Because now we have footage, evidence of harassment, violation of the temporary protective order you helped file last week. Understanding lit in her eyes. Ah, this wasn't about revenge. It was about boundaries enforced with the strength I never had before. A few minutes later, the head of building security approached us. They're beginning to push against the barriers. Police are moving in. Do you want to watch the feed? He held up a tablet. I hesitated, then nodded. On the screen, the plaza came into view. Police officers stood in a line blocking the steps. My mother stood a few feet from them, still shouting, her voice shrill and cracking. Bella was clutching her phone, likely live streaming again. People held signs. Some were chanting. But then an officer stepped forward with a loudspeaker. This is unlawful assembly. You are obstructing access to private property. Disperse immediately. Bella shouted something inaudible. My mother shoved past her, yelling at the officer, pointing again toward the building. Security zoomed in on the recording. My breath caught. She wasn't just yelling. She was threatening. She'll regret ruining us. I'll make sure she pays for what she's done. She thinks she's safe in that tower. She's not safe anywhere. Even the crowd faltered at that. The officer raised a hand toward her. Ma'am, step back. She didn't. Instead, she lunged, pushing the officer's arm, jabbing a finger in his chest. The moment his hand touched her shoulder to restrain her, Bella screamed. But it was too late. Handcuffs clicked. My mother was arrested right there on the plaza steps, her shawl slipping off her shoulder, her face contorted in outrage and disbelief. The crowd dispersed in stunned silence. Bella tried to rush toward her, but two officers blocked her path. Her live stream went shaky, filled with gasps and curses and panic. The camera caught everything. Her mother screaming, her face draining of color, her sign dropping onto the concrete. And then someone recognized her from the viral clips weeks earlier. You're the one who spent $14,000 on your sister's card. She's the liar. You scammed her. Voices rose, turning on her sharp and merciless. Bella backed away, then ran. The feed ended abruptly. Robert looked at me softly. I'm sorry you had to see that. I stared at the frozen video frame on the tablet, my mother in cuffs, Bella fleeing her own chaos. For the first time in years, I didn't feel guilt. I felt closure. She did this to herself, I said quietly. Yes, Robert agreed. And now the law sees it too. I exhaled, slow, steady. What happens next? Her violation of the protective order will hold, he said. We'll file for a permanent one. And as for the public harassment, your firm is already drafting a statement. You haven't done anything wrong. Their smear campaign is collapsing. I nodded. My hands weren't shaking. My breathing was steady. My voice wasn't breaking. This was the moment I used to dread my family falling apart publicly. And yet, I felt calm, centered, safe. Robert touched my arm gently. Let's go upstairs. You don't need to see the rest, but I did see the rest, just not what was happening outside. I saw the rest inside myself. A chapter closing, a wound finally stitching itself together, a daughter choosing herself instead of the cycle she'd been raised in. When I returned to my office, my assistant handed me a fresh cup of tea. I'm proud of you, she said simply. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe it. I stood by the window, no blinds this time, and watched the police cars pull away with their lights flashing against the fading sky. My mother wasn't my problem anymore. Bella wasn't my responsibility. Their chaos didn't belong to me, not anymore. I whispered into the quiet room. This ends with me. And for the first time, it truly did. 6 months after the Plaza incident, my life felt like a different universe, one built on quiet stability instead of chaos, on chosen connections instead of inherited chains. I woke each morning in a home that was truly mine, without bracing for a crisis disguised as a phone call. There were no petitions with my name on them, no late-night threats, no surprise bills, no guilt-spiked demands from the people who once drained me dry. The world had settled. And more importantly, so had I. But peace, it turned out, was not a single moment. It was a practice, a slow, deliberate rebuilding of the self after years of being torn down from the inside. I was in the middle of reviewing a major financial fraud case one afternoon when my assistant appeared in my doorway. There's someone downstairs asking for you, she said. He says his name is Mark. I froze. I hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in a very long time. My father. I stood smoothing my blazer, my heartbeat steady, not anxious, not frightened, just quietly prepared. When I reached the private lobby, he was sitting on one of the leather benches, hands clasped together, shoulders curved inward like he was trying to make himself smaller. He looked older than I remembered, but lighter too, softer around the eyes, like he'd finally stopped carrying someone else's weight. He stood when he saw me. Hi, sweetheart. Hi, Dad, I said gently. Everything okay? He smiled faintly. Better than I deserve. But yes. We walked to the small cafe in the building, and he ordered tea while I ordered coffee. For a few moments we said nothing, but the silence wasn't brittle the way it used to be. It was open, tentative, like soil being turned after a long winter. I wanted to see you, he began, because I thought you deserved to hear it from me directly. The divorce is finalized. I blinked. That fast I didn't contest anything. Your mother fought it, but... The judge didn't look kindly on her recent history. His voice lowered. She's moved to a subsidized apartment on the south side. I visit sometimes to make sure she's eating. But I don't stay long. I nodded slowly. How is she? He shook his head, still angry at everyone except herself, still telling people she was wronged, but calmer now, maybe tired. I let that sit. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel pity. I felt distance, healthy distance, earned distance. And you? I asked softly. He smiled, small but real. I'm learning about being alone, about making my own choices instead of following someone else's voice. Then he looked at me with steady, honest eyes. I'm also learning what kind of father I still want to be if you'll let me. Emotion prickled at the back of my throat. "I'm open to it," I said quietly, slowly. He nodded, accepting that without flinching. Slowly is fine, as long as it's true. After he left, I sat alone with my coffee, feeling the shape of something unfamiliar but welcome. Family. Rebuilt not from blood, but from intention. Later that evening, when I walked into my penthouse, the sunset spilled gold through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city hummed below, unaware of the quiet revolution happening in my life. Robert was already in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, stirring a pot of something that smelled rich and comforting. "You're home early," he said with a crooked smile. "I had a surprise visitor," I replied, dropping my keys into the bowl on the counter. He raised an eyebrow. "Good surprise or your usual brand of disaster surprise?" "The good kind," I said softly. "My dad." Robert stopped stirring, turned fully toward me. "And how did that go?" I leaned against the counter. "It was healing." I didn't think I'd ever use that word about him. He crossed the room and touched my hand, grounding me with a simple gesture. "People can surprise you," he murmured. "I know," I squeezed his fingers. "I did." "You did." He gave a low laugh. "And your mother. Any new developments, not since the last failed appeal on the restraining order?" I shrugged lightly. "The system is finally holding her accountable. I don't need to." "She can't touch you now," he said quietly. "I know," I whispered. And I truly did. For the first time in my adult life, I understood deeply fully that her power over me had been an illusion, a spell I had broken the moment I chose myself. We ate dinner together, comfortable silence and warm conversation weaving between bites. The kind of evening I used to think belonged to other people, stable people, lucky people, not me. Afterward, I carried my glass of wine to the balcony and watched the lights blink across the skyline. Atlanta glittered like a city dreaming of its own reinvention. I felt that too. My phone buzzed on the table beside me, a text from an unknown number. But this time it wasn't a threat. It wasn't a manipulation. It wasn't a plea disguised as a demand. It was a picture of a worn-out paperback, a self-help book titled Breaking the Cycle of Family Trauma. Below it, the message, "I'm trying, sweetheart." "Dad." I smiled, not a triumphant smile, not a vindicated smile, but a quiet one. One that felt like forgiveness without forgetting acceptance, without surrender. Healing wasn't pretty. It wasn't instant. But it was happening. I turned back toward the city, letting the breeze brush past me, carrying away the remnants of a life I no longer had to shoulder. My mother's chaos no longer belonged to me. My sister's envy no longer defined me. My past no longer dictated my future. I had rebuilt not just my life, but my peace. And this time no one could take it. Not for $14,000. Not for a house. Not for blood or guilt or legacy. Never again. I raised my glass to the skyline. "To the woman who finally chose herself," I whispered. And for the first time, I believed her. Thank you for staying with me through every turn of this story. If you've ever walked away from someone who kept taking without giving back, or if you're still learning how to choose yourself, I would love to hear your journey too. Share your thoughts below like if this story resonated, and subscribe for more stories of justice, healing, and hard-won freedom.